Masked Hero.
Hello everybody and welcome to another video. This week I wanted to talk about a list of 5 more scenarios or concepts that we could be using for PvP, aka who we can turn into leaders. And I wanted to do this because while I am not a PvP player, I do think the idea of taking established heroes and turning them into scenarios is at least something that is worth entertaining. And also, I think at some point, if they're going to continue to do PvP as like a biannual kind of thing, I think it's going to be a requirement that we get away from the Civil War theming and we turn it into just basically scenario packs that maybe feature one specific side of a conflict in some form or fashion. And that's kind of what I'm here to brainstorm today. Right off the bat, the 5 scenarios we're talking about, 4 of which are with established heroes from our game. The first one we're going to be talking about today is just kind of a pie in the sky, like what if they did this? And that would be that it would be interesting if we entertained the idea of like a multi-leader scenario. And I think the place to start would be with the Alpha Flight, which is kind of the Canadian X-Men or the Canadian Avengers to some extent. And I say this because there's a wealth of characters, and if we wanted to, and just make it a scenario pack where it's like this can become one of the sides of your conflict. You're no longer talking about the Resistance versus the Registration. You're talking about the Resistance versus Alpha Flight. Like, I don't want to try to figure out what a multi-leader scenario would look like, but I do think that taking as an example something like Mansion Attack or the Sinister Six, where either one leader's in at a time and their life totals are generally pretty low. The only stipulation there is with Mansion Attack, you can kind of decide like how many of these villains am I going to defeat to win. I don't know if you would do the same thing with a multi-leader scenario, or if it would be more like Sinister Six, where you're just churning through villains, but there's like an alternate win condition for the other team. This also allows it to play like an actual scenario where you're either defeating a certain amount of them, or like again, there's an alternate win condition for just the cooperative team players. This would allow us to use characters like Vindicator, the different Guardians, North Star, Aurora, Puck, Songbird, and Sasquatch. Like I think there's a wealth of characters, and with that we would be able to just, form some kind of a thing. This is my poorest idea because I don't know how you balance multi-leaders versus a scenario that only has one leader. I suppose it would actually come down to hit points and, like I said, an alternate win condition for the other team. But I'm interested in what this would look like, and I think that a new team, whole cloth, is the better place to start than trying to, go up against the X-Men. And you have to basically signify that there are 4 or 5 X-Men that deserve to be established as the leader deck versus the wealth of characters we've already seen in the 3 waves that we had. That said, let's move on to the next one, which actually happens to be the X-Men. In fact, I think the X-Men dominate this list to some extent. But I think another conflict that could actually be a full-on just like Synthezoid Smackdown. We would be able to do that by tailoring the 2008-2009 Cable series, where Cable is taking Baby Hope into the future to outrun Bishop. This would allow us to take the 2 heroes of Cable and Bishop and turn them into leaders in a conflict that is spanning across time. I think the interesting part about this is it allows us to then put in modular encounter sets that are vastly different than the Civil War ones. We would be able to look at different time periods, maybe take the concept of the different environments from the Dark Beast scenario and turn it into the different time periods that they visit, like the future, far, far future. Maybe get into specific like 2,500, 30,000, like whatever. Really explore that. Allow us to go around time and everything. But I think just the conflict of Bishop and Cable, Bishop trying to capture Baby Hope because he thinks that she's going to lead to his dark future, versus Cable, who's trying to maintain hope because he believes that she will be the savior who will save mutants, is a conflict that I think is deserving of a scenario pack and to have these two go at it. And also, I just like to see how these two characters could be translated to leader decks. What the kits look like for these two, because obviously we're going to be taking cues from everything. And, you know, even just going as far as to say, like, hey, when someone like Bishop takes damage, maybe it's like Venom where you're giving him face down boost cards. Maybe he has cards in his kit that represent resources in some way. You know, they do something else, but maybe they represent resources. And how he can turn that into damage, into healing, and all this stuff. It would be actually wild to see a Bishop scenario where he can heal as much as the Bishop hero can. And then on the flip side, we have Cable, who is different enough because he has telekinesis, he has telepathy, probably throwing out more side schemes than normal. And again, that would be interesting, and I want to see what that will look like in the context of our game. Next up, we have the Phoenix 5, so another multi-leader scenario, where we would have Namor, Magic, Colossus, White Queen, and Cyclops taking on the powers of the Phoenix, straight out of the Avengers vs. X-Men event. And how would we be able to take them down? And I think this is one that would be really fun in co-op. Basically, we missed out on having a Dark Phoenix scenario. I think this would be a good way to take that idea and turn it into something more. Basically taking the idea of the Horsemen of Apocalypse and turning it into a Dark Phoenix scenario. I think that would be really fun. I think the interesting part about that is also that as each leader fell, the other ones took on their power. So is there a way to adapt that into the gameplay to say, like, hey, so everybody starts out with, 9 hit points, and when each one of them falls, the hit points that they had maybe get distributed. That it becomes exponential, and I don't take that as the way to do it, but I want to figure out some kind of way, like not just like the attack hit points they have, or maybe the attachments that get added to the leaders over the course of the game. Those have to be distributed to the other leaders as each one of the leaders falls, and ultimately leading you to that point when one of the leaders is just, Omega mode combo breaker White Queen or whatever it is. This intrigues me in a way that when I was thinking about it, when I was making this list and that hit me, I was like, this would be so much fun. On the flip side, if we didn't want to get into a multi-leader scenario, I do just think that the Schism event, where it was Cyclops versus Wolverine, Cyclops wanting to turn the X-Men into like a paramilitary group, and Wolverine just being like, why don't we just raise the next generation of X-Men and mutants to be as well educated, as powerful, as protected as possible, and that Schism being able to just take Cyclops and Wolverine and turn them into leaders, I think would also be very interesting. I think that would be the closest to the Civil War Synthezoid SmackDown stuff that we've seen thus far. I think this would be the most basic, but I think it's one that would sell well, and I think that a lot of people would want to do that. They'd want to play a Wolverine event. They'd want to play, or a Wolverine scenario. I think there would be people that would want to play against Cyclops. And I think that both of them, especially in this particular context where they're just fighting for the soul of mutant kind, I think both of them play off in a way where you can point to which one you think is better or worse. But I would say versus Civil War, where it sort of feels like they had to twist the character a lot to turn Tony into the wrong, but still kind of play it off like he was in the right. And in this context, I don't think that you can really go like, well, Cyclops is right because he's the Magneto now, and Wolverine is now the Professor X, because we all agree that Magneto is right, or Wolverine's right because he just wants to do right by mutant kind. Like, I think that these are murky and gray enough that you don't feel like you're playing for the bad guys. You're just kind of playing for two different mindsets. And again, I think that would be interesting, and I'd like to see that happen. Hello, if you are enjoying this content, if this happens to be the third video of mine you've watched today, I would really love a subscription. It goes a long ways. Additionally, if you have discretionary spending, this is not required, but I do have members opened up. I want to make members only content. The demand's just not there yet. But they do get to see the videos as soon as they are live. That can be 24 hours notice. That can be a week and a half's notice. But you get that content right away. Any form of encouragement, any form of support is definitely appreciated. I won't take up any more of your time. Next up, our fourth, or maybe our secret fifth one, is I have a feeling that this is not going to happen. But when I was reacting to the in-flight report, they showed us that Shadowland was a thing. They showed us that Daredevil is going to be, in it in some capacity as a scenario head. And I hypothesized that maybe they would make him into a leader scenario. I think a Daredevil versus Elektra thing would be really cool. I wish we could do Daredevil and Elektra together because that arc in the thing, it's like 9 to 12 issues, something like that, where they come together, they get married, and they attempt to take down the Hand, and if memory serves, they don't accomplish that. They got tricked by the Hand or something. But I think just a scenario pack where we have Daredevil and Elektra as the two leaders of factions would be so interesting and so much fun. And I think the best twist on this would to be following the Shadowland thing, where Daredevil is the full on, he is the antagonist of all this, and Elektra represents the heroes trying to do right. And just the idea of getting a whole bunch of different versions of ninja scenarios, the Hand as the backup modular encounters for Daredevil would be really fun. And then you have, I guess it would kind of be doing the Resistance 2.0 with Elektra, but you're doing other street level heroes. But either way, this is probably the poorest of my examples, but just one that it came to me and I was like, yeah, I would say if Shadowland doesn't turn into a Daredevil leader kind of secret scenario, then I'd like to see that as a scenario at some point in the future. And then last one, and this would definitely be its own thing without multiple leaders in the scenario pack. But I would love to see Deadpool lead a scenario and just do Deadpool versus the universe. Or, sorry, Deadpool ends the universe. You know what I mean? But yeah, just seeing Deadpool as a leader and trying to adapt the mechanics that they've given him where he can't be defeated in a normal way. And probably just getting that ray gun so that you can take away his card text for a turn. And being able to defeat him. I think this would be a wacky scenario, but I think it would be one worth entertaining. And yeah, I just look forward to what this could be, because I think that with Deadpool, I'm thinking too small. I think you could go huge with what you're able to do. You could bring in, you got all those infinite Deadpools alluded to from the pool. Well, I guess the pool of cards, and then the encounter set that comes with it. Crisis of Infinite Deadpools and all that stuff. I think that would be really fun, and I think that there's something to mine there, and I want to see what comes of it. And most importantly, I want to fight Deadpool. I want Cable to go up against Deadpool. I want Spider-Man to go up against Deadpool. I want, insert hero here to go against Deadpool. And I think also what was kind of left unsaid here is that I want these to also be figureheads, leaders that would work well as just the alternate side of a conflict between Iron Man as a leader and Deadpool as a leader, or Cyclops as a leader versus Captain America as a leader, and then actually playing PvP. That is something that I want to hold on to. I want that to be a thing that people can still enjoy, because I do think that some of the health of this game is going to come down to being able to cater to multiple ways of playing. And we already have standard, we already have expert, we already have whatever the thing about expert is that I've never even entertained. We have skirmish mode, but if PvP is going to be a thing, and I think that will attract a certain amount of audience, I want to cater to them in some capacity. I don't want it to be a yearly focus, but if it was every 2 years we got a scenario pack that involved giving us a new side for a leader conflict, I'd be interested in that, and it would still feed into what I'm trying to do, because it would still allow me to do my solo gameplay against these heroes, and I think it is a good answer that does not break the patterns that the game has created. But either way, what is a scenario what is a hero we've already have in the game that you'd love to see turn into a leader in the future? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day, and remember, you're doing great. Keep it up.